Welcome to the All Eers podcast, powered by HD Media.
Hi, everyone. Welcome into the latest edition of the All Eers podcast. If you have your coffee in your hand, thank you for joining us. If you're driving, make sure you keep it 10 and 2. If you're actually driving on your way home, thank you for letting us be your drive home entertainment. If you're at work, well, I'm sorry. Get back to work. No, I'm just kidding. But we appreciate you all listening in, tuning in to us. This is the latest edition of the All Eers podcast, a Charleston Gazette Mail and HD Media product. And you can find us on social media at GAZ Mail Sports. That's Gaz Mail Sports, GAZ Mail Sports on Facebook, at HD Media Sports, and on YouTube at HD Media Game Day. Another loaded show for you guys here. Coming up in our next segment, we're going to be joined by WVU men's head soccer coach Dan Stratford. They are in the midst of a 5-game spring soccer schedule. They've already played 2 games already. They have 3 games remaining coming up on Friday. They will play Friday, then 2 more games after that. On Friday, they will play the University of Charleston Golden Eagles, then 2 games following that later in April against the Georgetown Hoyas and the Maryland Terrapins. But for the time being, the news of the day is the West Virginia men's basketball team being in Sin City in Las Vegas, taking on the Stanford Cardinal in Game 1 of the college basketball crown. And if WVU were to win 3 straight games, they would win a $500,000 prize pool. So a lot's at stake, and it gives the Mountaineers a chance to play in the postseason, despite the fact that the NCAA tournament is in the Final Four weekend, with the national championship being played on Monday. But one of the things that Ross Hodge talked about whenever he met with the media earlier this week is the similarities and the parallels that he sees between having a game this late in the season compared to what college football does during bowl season, because WVU hasn't played a game in a little over 3 weeks. The last game that they played was against BYU in the Big 12 Conference Tournament in Kansas City, where they lost 68-48. So here's Coach Hodge talking about the parallels between playing in the college basketball crown and college football having bowl season.
The first practice back that we had, Tony, Caridi, and those guys, they come to practice a lot, but he's like, hey, man, this is your first bowl game. You know, he's like, this is your first, and he wasn't wrong. You know, it was very similar to what football does with their bowl games, you know, where they may have a month or even more than that. And so I think what this situation allows you to do more than others is you did get a chance to get away a little bit. Our guys were able to have a true spring break, and you were able to, you know, coming off the conference tournament, everybody was to kind of get away from each other for a little bit. A lot of our guys ended up spending time with each other in spring break and went and did that. And then you're coming off that first week back, you're really just trying to get their legs back under and get in a little bit of conditioning, get back to playing. And now you lead into the Stanford game, which is on Thursday. So it's not like you sat around for 2 weeks, really just solely prepping and focusing on them. A lot of it was you just focus on yourself and just get back to playing basketball.
That's Coach Ross Hodge talking about the parallels between the college basketball crown and college football bowl season. If you look at it from a historical perspective between West Virginia and Stanford, these teams have only played one other time, and this will be the second ever meeting coming up on Thursday at 8 p.m. on Fox Sports 1. But the last time that these two foes met was in Los Angeles, California, where it was 1959, okay? You got to think, this is the season following WVU coming up short in the national title game to Cal by 1 point. And this team in 1959, it was December 28th, 1959, when WVU beat Stanford 66-47 with Coach Fred Schaus at the helm, and then guys like Jerry West, Willie Akers, and Lee Patrone. So obviously it's been a long time since these two teams have played each other, and these two will take the floor Thursday evening. Break the take here on the All Eers podcast. Again, we're going to be joined by men's head soccer coach Dan Stratford, and we'll talk with him after this break. This is the All Eers podcast.
Oh, good gravy. The kind made from real premium sausage. The kind that's smothered over deliciousness. The kind you can only get at Tudor's Biscuit World. That's the gravy that's oh so good. It's the perfect topping to your biscuits or your taters, and even makes a delicious side. It's oh so good gravy. Tudor's Biscuit World. We're dripping with oh good gravy.
HD Media Sports is your one-stop destination for top high school and college sports coverage in the Mountain State. From Morgantown to Mingo County, our award-winning reporters keep you informed about your favorite teams and players, including exclusive coverage of the Marshall Thundering Herd and the West Virginia Mountaineers. Follow HD Media Sports on Facebook to stay up to date on the latest news, features, and game coverage.
Welcome back into the latest edition of the All Eers podcast. I'm your host, Taylor Kennedy. Thank you all for joining us. You can find us on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts, along with being on YouTube by simply searching up HD Media Game Day, and all of our other social media platform links are in the description, so be sure to follow us to keep up to date with this podcast. Obviously, we spent the majority of this series, this podcast so far, talking about spring football over the last couple of weeks, with the Mountaineers preparing for the 2026 season under Coach Rich Rodriguez and his second year back in Morgantown. But for many people that don't know, the WVU men's soccer team has been playing a spring soccer schedule since late February, early March, and they have a couple of games coming up in the month of April, including a game coming up against the University of Charleston here on April the 3rd at Dick Delesk Soccer Stadium on Friday, April the 3rd at 7 p.m. And what better to kind of get a lay of the land for men's soccer right now, and kind of getting a little bit of a preview for the month of April than the men's head soccer coach himself, head coach Dan Stratford. Coach, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So, Coach, to start, let's kind of start here and work our way down. Obviously, you guys are like football in a lot of ways. Obviously, the name, soccer, football, same thing in a sense. But spring schedule, okay? So walk me through that. What are you wanting to learn about your team leading into the month of March? Because I know you guys have played a couple of games already, including against Pitt in March. What are you wanting to learn about your team in these last few games in this spring schedule?
Yeah, I think the spring offers a unique opportunity to kind of explore the entirety of the squad. Obviously, you know, during the full season, it's a really, really busy segment for us, lots of games. And you often kind of settle on what you think is your best 11 or the group that you perceive to ultimately feel like it's going to help you the most for that period of the year. And it can be really, really difficult for a young player coming in at that point in the year. If you find yourself a little bit behind in preseason, if you have an injury, it doesn't take a lot to find yourself kind of on the outside looking in. And the spring's a really nice opportunity for a reset for some players that maybe haven't played the minutes that they would have preferred during the season. An opportunity for people to fill the role of some of those who have graduated. Often the senior leadership is something that is a big emphasis on what we need to replace going into the spring. So with where we are in the spring and what we have left, you know, we've seen a lot of equal opportunity up to now. We have empowered some with some more leadership responsibilities than what they had before. And with Charleston this Friday night, and then a game against a very good Georgetown and Maryland game also at home at Dick Delesk on the two following weekends. You know, I think we'll start to showcase, from a coaching perspective, we'll probably start to showcase what we feel is our best group right now with what we have. So, you know, I'm looking for players to respond and obviously players to showcase that trust was rightly placed in them, but also for others to respond and recognize that there's still plenty of time left this spring for them to kind of move themselves further up the pecking order and well position themselves going into the start of next season.
Looking at your roster here on the WVU Sports website, you got a lot of guys listed as either redshirt freshmen or freshmen, and a couple of sophomores mixed into that as well. How much of an opportunity is this? I know you kind of mentioned it briefly there a second ago, but how much of an opportunity is this for these freshmen that maybe have enrolled early at WVU? And then also, what's your message to these guys whenever they do get thrown into the mix during the spring soccer schedule?
Yeah, I think there's got to be an understanding that we'd always like to play more than we can in the spring. We have a spring schedule right now that permits 5 games. Obviously, our regular season is hopefully north of 20 with postseason and what we can achieve from that perspective. So it never feels like quite enough of a sample size. So I want them to recognize, while in our training environment everything is equal opportunity, the reps are evenly distributed. There's no kind of positional depth chart that you may see in football, for example. Everyone's going to get an equal access and a fair shake right now. But we are unnecessarily going to kind of turn our attention to, okay, how do we start to see what this group's going to look like and put our best foot forward and our best group forward going into these last 3 games. there needs to be still a sense of urgency for some of those players that, this illusion of time that they may feel they've had through January, February, and March, it's about to get real. I've been honest with them this week that, we plan to kind of feel like we're picking our strongest group going into these last 3 games. And, they'll have to, in some cases, overcome that adversity if it's not their name that gets called straight away, and show a lot of resilience and grit to kind of push through and again, make sure that whatever opinion I may have today is something that they can continue to work on and improve as we get to the conclusion of the spring and as we head into next fall. So I think there's often this false sense of security with some of the younger players that they have 4 years and they have time, and to some extent they do, but I want them to be really ambitious in terms of what they can achieve, and want them to have that appetite to make an impact as soon as humanly possible.
When you look at this group that you have during the first couple of games you guys have played in the spring soccer schedule, what's your biggest takeaway? And only 2 games being played with this group, but what's your biggest takeaway thus far?
We still got some work to do and some growth to show. Again, I think when we have essentially distributed minutes in a really even and equal way so far this spring, we haven't necessarily always seen our best pairings in certain positions in terms of our defensive units, midfield units, so on and so forth. We've tried to pick 2 halves, between 2 halves, 2 even groups with what we have. So I do think there's been some shortcomings and obviously some positives for what that means in terms of opportunity, but perhaps some shortcomings in terms of overall cohesion in the way that the team has played. So we're looking for some improvement in that regard. I think there's been a lot that we've liked and a lot that we felt like could be significantly better in the first 2 games. And there's a really, really nice opportunity here against obviously a really, really strong Division 2 opponent, and then 2 mainstay top 25, top 10 caliber programs in Georgetown and Maryland coming to town over the next 3 weeks, where our intent is to win those games and to feel like when we're at home, we maintain a reputation of having a really, really strong kind of home record, and for it to be a really difficult place to play. And I think regardless of whether the game is worth 3 points or worth RPI or whatever it may be, I don't care if it's an exhibition. I want that mentality to be that when we play at home, it's going to be very, very difficult for our opponent.
Looking back at last season, you guys finished 13-5-3. You guys make the NCAA tournament for another year in your tenure in Morgantown. You win the first round game against St. John's 4-3. Then you guys go on the road to North Carolina to play High Point and fall in that game 3-2. When you look back on the 2025 season, what do you feel, or where do you feel that for this program to get over that step or over that hump to compete and get further in the NCAA tournament and possibly compete for a national championship? What do you feel is still there but not quite there yet?
Yeah, I think it's very, very marginal gains. I think it's an understanding that our sport is about really fine margins. And, when we kind of almost do an audit of the season, right, and kind of reevaluate how we performed and so on and so forth, there's so much that we see statistically from not just 2025, but also 2024, that would actually lead you to believe that from a performance perspective, it was more well-rounded and more polished than some of what we did in 23 when we made a College Cup. So it means that you do need a bit of fortune in our sport as well. I always use the analogy, it's like going and playing Texas Hold'em and understanding that whilst you might have pocket aces, you can still lose to 7-2, the worst hand in poker. Like, you still need the cards to fall your way a little bit. And I think there was a little bit of a combination of some poorly timed misfortune at times, whether it be video review or just an unforced or individual error that is so difficult to account for with young players that recognize that can happen in our sport. The challenge in the way that our sport is scored is that it only takes one of those to lose the game. And the score doesn't finish 72-73 with all these other opportunities to make up for one mistake. So I think we were a little unfortunate and on the wrong side of a few bounces last season that was probably cost us in the end when it came to winning the conference and defending that conference title that we'd earned in 2024. I genuinely felt over the course of the season and the quality of what I saw from our team along with our competition that we were the best team in the conference last year. But the reality was, that wasn't reflected at the end of the year. We didn't win the league. So I do think it's very, very small margins. I think there's a little more pride we can take in our defensive contribution, our defensive qualities. I think, our statistical data is probably increased a little bit there as far as our capacity to keep shutouts and stop the opponent. I think we need to improve a little bit there, and that's probably what we've looked to do with some of the reinforcements that have joined us this spring, and we'll continue to look into as we go into next August. But the short answer is not a lot. That may disappoint you, but again, when we look at so much statistical data and have so much that we analyze following the fact, that there was a lot to indicate there was potentially a much, much better team than 13-5-2 last season, as you mentioned, in terms of our overall record.
Talking about some of these players that you have on this spring roster, before we talk about that, talk about just trying to fill the shoes of a guy like Marcus Caldera. He had a fantastic game against St. John's in that opening round game in the NCAA tournament. His legacy that he leaves behind now, I know you do return your number 2 and number 3 goal scorers, and Pablo Pozos and Isaac Shear, who combined for 14 goals. What are you wanting to see from those two guys specifically? Because I know obviously it's just a mix and match with soccer with rotations and guys in being in different positions, but trying to fill those shoes now of a leader and a player of a caliber like Caldera. What are you wanting to see from these two players, maybe in the spring in these last couple of games, but also throughout the offseason leading into the 2026 season?
Yeah, I think it's an understanding that it would be unrealistic to feel as though we're going to have one player that's going to replace Marcus Caldera, nor would I want to put that responsibility on any one individual. The reality of what Marcus has achieved means that he's almost certainly going to be a Hall of Fame inductee at West Virginia at one point or another. If we recruit a player that has the level of success that Marcus did once every 10 years, I'll be very, very happy. So I think you have to identify how fortunate we were that he kind of blossomed in the way that he did, and the output that we got from Marcus was incredible. The fact that he stayed healthy all 4 years as well was really fortuitous in that regard. But there's a lot of other good pieces around him, and we feel really confident that what we have recruited from an attacking output perspective with 2 new additions, hopefully soon to be announced, that we'll have enough. I think the reality of what we do, and probably the part of the job I enjoy the most is, there are literally thousands and thousands of young men that would love an opportunity to come and play at West Virginia. And not all of them are the same, and not all of them match what just graduated from the program. I think I really enjoy the process of identifying players that we think are incredibly talented, will fit the culture and the mold of West Virginia student athletes, and we will adapt to their strengths and weaknesses and adjust in the game model and the way that we play. Call on others and perhaps that kind of arguably 1 in 10 year performance that you saw from Marcus against St. John's to score the hat trick to kind of bring us back from the depths of defeat was something that you don't see often. That takes a very, very special individual. So we'll probably do it with strength in numbers. It's going to be impossible, and it would be a really outlandish statement for me to say, I have the replacement, don't worry, his name is, and fill in that blank. I think what we will do is rely and build upon the qualities of what Pablo has shown us in his first year last season. I know Isaac has incredible potential, and we think those numbers could probably double going into next season in terms of his attacking output. And then, as I said, we'll have a lot of faith in those that we have recruited and those additions that we have coming into the squad that have obviously what we believe to be exceptional resumes that we think will fit the playing style and hopefully be able to make an instant impact to the program.
One final question for you here, Coach, and I do appreciate your time, but you just finished your 6th season at WVU. You will now be entering your 7th season with the Mountaineers, your alma mater as well. Obviously, you've won 68 games in your 6 seasons at WVU. Have you taken a second to kind of just sit back and just soak in everything that you guys have been able to accomplish? Obviously, you guys still want to be able to compete and win a national title, but just the amount of success that you guys have attained in Morgantown in your 6 seasons, have you taken a second just to kind of just sit back and just see where this program was when you got it in 2020 to now where it is entering 2026?
To some extent, occasionally it's funny. It's hard to not feel disappointed after last season, given what we just come off the back of. Right, we were a College Cup Final Four team in 2023. We were both the conference regular season title and tournament title winners in 2024. So to feel like the success was perceived as a 13-win season and a second round NCAA tournament almost felt like a disappointment initially, and it was probably important that I reflected on just how rare that is, right? In the history of the program, there's only been 7 seasons where we've won 13 games or more, and obviously we've done that the last 3 years in a row. So it's probably part of my internal disappointment that maybe we didn't quite achieve as much as I thought we were capable of last season. Led me to kind of reflect on the totality of what we have done in recent years and maybe take a little bit more credit and go a little easier on myself for that initial disappointment of maybe feeling like we fell short of perhaps what we'd be capable of. But again, the reality of every season is there's only one team that gets to win their last game of the year, essentially. So we will continue to fight to put ourselves in contention for a national championship and to put ourselves in contention to win our conference, to be a seeded team. And again, hopefully not just recreate what we did in 2023, but go a step further. I truly believe that WVU is more than capable of winning a national championship. And yeah, we'll continue to work incredibly hard as a staff and as a program to maintain a level that gives us the potential platform for that come November. So fingers crossed that'll be the case this year. And when we enter postseason, we're well positioned and well placed with a lot of confidence and a really good tournament resume to make another run and go one step further.
Well, Coach, we appreciate your time. Thank you as always. Good luck to you guys with your 3 games in the month of April and your spring soccer schedule, and look forward to seeing those results and looking forward to the fall, Coach.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's head coach Dan Stratford of the WVU men's soccer team. Break to take here on the All Ears podcast. On the other side of this break, we'll talk more Mountaineer basketball here on the All Ears podcast.
As the game gets faster, stronger, more dynamic, your equipment has to keep up. Introducing the Riddell Axiom, the next evolution in football protection, designed to match the speed and strength of today's athlete. Contact West Virginia Riddell Representative Casey Turley at 304-552-5960. Gear up, play smart, stay protected.
HD Media Game Day is your streaming home for the best in live high school sports across West Virginia. Featuring football, basketball, soccer, and more, HD Media Game Day brings the action to you for free, exclusively on our YouTube channel and at hdmediagameday.com. When you can't make it to the game, HD Media Game Day has you covered.
Final few minutes here of the All Ears podcast. Thank you all for joining us. We'll spend the last couple of minutes here talking more about tonight's WVU men's basketball game against the Stanford Cardinal. And one of the players I want to speak about with this Stanford team is Ebuka Okori, who is one of the freshman phenoms that doesn't really get a whole lot of hype, especially with how loaded this freshman class is. You got guys like Cameron Boozer, Caden Boozer, Darren Peterson, AJ Diabansa from BYU. I mean, there's a host of guys, but looking at Okori's stats, he's averaging 22.8 points. He's shooting 46% from the field, 36% from 3, and a whopping 83% from the free throw line. So what a fantastic career that he's had thus far at Stanford. And also 3.7 rebounds, 106 assists to 54 turnovers, pretty good assist-to-turnover ratio, 47 steals, 10 blocks. So this will definitely be a handful for the Mountaineer defense. And one of the things that Coach Hodge talked about was Okori and what he presents with the Stanford team. So here's Coach Ross Hodge on Ebuka Okori.
Yeah, obviously it starts with, they have one of the best players in the country. He's another one of those freshmen that maybe didn't have the same level of hype as some of the freshmen in our league, but he certainly had that level of production and that level of impact on them. And he's dynamic. He wasn't a great shooter in high school. That wasn't a strength of his, but he's added that to his game since he's gotten into college, and that's really made him a tough cover, man. He's fast. He's aggressive. He can get his own shot. He gets those other guys involved, and he starts with him, and they have a good player around him. Coach Smith does a good job, like using him and manipulating his gravity, and they're tough.
That's head coach Ross Hodge talking about the Stanford freshman phenom, Ebeka Okori. And one final clip here on Ross Hodge. The Mountaineers will enter Thursday's contest 18-14, and they finish with a 9-9 conference record. They enter Thursday's contest against Stanford, having lost their last contest against BYU, 68-48, and they've also been on a little bit of an up and down stretch here. They've lost entering this game 4 of their last 6, with their 2 wins coming with a 15-point win over UCF on March the 6th and a 8-point victory over then number 19 BYU on February the 28th, 79-71. And how has this first year been for Ross Hodge after getting the job last March? It's been his 1-year anniversary. So here's Ross Hodge talking about how he feels his first year at WVU has gone.
Again, it just tells you how fast time can really go, and this year's went fast as so many of them haven't had like a true probably amount of time to reflect on anything. You probably, weirdly enough, the slowest time now probably for a college basketball coach is when you actually get your brand new team that shows up in June. And even though you're learning them, that's probably when it slows down the most. Because as soon as your season's over now, you're right into the transfer portal, and those visits will start happening. You're kind of reconstructing your roster all over again. So it's just you don't really have a lot of time to.
You're reacting. Right?
Yeah, you don't have a lot of time to kind of sit back and even reflect on. The good and the bad and where we are, and you that time typically comes a little deeper in the summer now, whereas you used to could play the season, everybody goes to their neutral corners for a little bit, you get away from your players, they get away from you, you all realize like, man, we actually do like each other, and then you start your off-season workouts, now because of the nature of this thing, you really get no time in that regard.
That's head coach Ross Hodge talking about his first year takeaways thus far. Obviously, they still have a lot more reflection to do, it seems like, so we'll get more insight with that. Hopefully, we can get Coach Ross Hodge on the program to get more of an insight with that down the road, so we'll try that. But, again, tonight, 8 p.m., Fox Sports 1 between Stanford and WVU. You can find that if they win tonight against Stanford, the Mountaineers will play either Rutgers or Creighton coming up on Saturday at 4 p.m. and will be televised on Fox. If they win that game, then they will play on Sunday for the $500,000 prize pool in Las Vegas. That'll do it for us here on the All Ears podcast. Again, you can follow me on Twitter. That link is in the description, along with our Facebook, our Twitter, and our YouTube. And we will see you all next week. This is the All Ears podcast.
You have been listening to the All Ears podcast, powered by HD Media.